We create jobs and make entrepreneurial dreams come true. ACE, a nonprofit community lender, specializes in small business loans coupled with business advisory services. ACE has loaned more than $39 million, helped over 725 business owners fulfill their dreams, and ACE has helped its clients create or retain more than 6,200 jobs. These are the stories of those businesses we've helped reach success and claim their American dream.
Welcome to Ace's Best Stories. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Ace's Best Stories brings you the stories of entrepreneurs, small business owners, and those who are striking out on their own and what it takes to actually be successful in this world. My guest today is Anna Toomer. She is the founder of Maria Paulina. Did I say it all right?
You did.
Okay, good. Most important part of the whole interview is to make sure I get names right. So tell me a little bit about what you do with your business.
Great. So Maria Paulina is a Afro-modern collection of women's plus-size clothing.
Okay.
So we specialize in bold, colorful, African-inspired clothing for women sizes 14 to 24.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So tell me about how did you come up with the idea for the line?
So all my life I've been, a bigger girl. And so I've always struggled with finding garments that were colorful and bold. A lot of times as a plus size woman, probably I want to say about 20 years ago, right? So a lot of the clothing options were all bland, and for some reason, retailers thought that we wanted to hide our bodies, and so everything would be black, about 2 sizes too big. So I really believed that I could do something better.
Yeah.
And so, a couple years ago, I started looking into, how can I bring something to market that is unique, it's modern, and at the same time, it's still an ode to my heritage because I'm originally from Angola, Africa, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I wanted something that was African inspired, but at the same time that is flattering and for women of all ethnic backgrounds.
Got it. So is this like tell me history. Were you working somewhere else? Did you do this out of school?
I did not. So I actually went to school for finance.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I went to school for finance.
I'm a recovering technologist. So I went to school for computer science. Now I primarily do marketing and things like that. But yeah. So okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually so I work for a CPA firm by day, and by night I'm pretty much working on new designs and marketing this beautiful brand. So I kind of have like an alter personality, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is your side hustle right now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And that is really sort of an interesting mix. So you went to school for finance, which feels very numbers and tick and tack, and you've got to tap into a creative space.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that probably for everyone, right? We all have some creative space inside of us. And I think for me, already as a little girl, I remember, having a pair of jeans and then cutting them and, doing different things with my clothes just to make it work, right? So I've always had a love for fashion and garments, but, growing up in the 90s, there wasn't really many garments and options for me to play around with as, a plus size girl. And so that's when, I always, had in my mind that, hey, I wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
I wanted something that, reflects my personality. And the reason I decided to turn it into a business was because I felt that other plus size women also wanted an option that is bold and colorful and beautiful, right? Beyond what's currently out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you talk about that or think about that, going to school and getting a degree in finance and maybe having cut up some jeans as a kid, there's a leap from doing that to deciding you're going to have something created and manufactured. Yeah. Where did you even know how to start?
So I call myself, I'm a Google whiz. So I'm a CPA and auditor, right? And so one of the great things about that actually kind of helped me in this, in this space was that I do a lot of research. I'm very inquisitive. And so I got the idea. Hey, let me figure out what it takes to bring a garment to market, right?
And that didn't worry you. You didn't go read those or watch one of my other shows and say, maybe I shouldn't do that.
well, at the time, honestly, I'm very persistent as well. So I started doing my research online and saying, hey, what does this take? And I just started reaching out blindly to manufacturers. Most did not respond to me. They're like, who is this? No.
Right. And that's the story. I hear that story over and over again, that it really is hard to get a manufacturer to pay attention to you.
Right. So I just kept knocking on doors, right? And then a lot of people told me, oh, well, it can't be done, because I wanted to create my line with, African print fabric, right? And African print fabric, or Ankara as it's called, is traditionally, it's non-stretch, so it's a 100% cotton weave. So it's not really flattering for plus size women. Most plus size garments have to have some sort of stretch to it, right? Okay. So it's more flattering on different curvier frames. And so one manufacturer told me, like, this can't be done.
Oh, wow.
You'll never be able to do it, because also when you're manufacturing clothing, you have to have rolls of fabric, right? And they were like, oh, well, this cannot be done. And I was like, well, that was like a challenge to me. Okay, well, let me figure out how it can be done.
Right.
So outside of looking for a manufacturer that would be able to work with me, I also had to look for a supplier to be able to supply me with fabric. And so that pretty much led me to, hey, I'm going to print my own fabric as well.
Wow, that's ambitious.
Yeah. So I went to Google and I found a manufacturer here in Atlanta that would be able to work with me. And from start to scratch, right? Bring these garments to market. And I found a manufacturer, a graphic printing company, actually in China, to be able to print my fabric on cotton that has stretch fibers, so that it's more flattering on plus size frames.
So when you're thinking about creating or having the fabric printed, talk to me about, so coming up with the patterns and knowing what that's going to look like. Is that something you do, or do you have designers and then you're just saying you like what they do? Like, where are you in that creative part of the process?
So I work with a graphic designer.
Okay.
And I suggest, I send her pretty much anything that looks nice, and we start from there, and we start to kind of work and see, hey, what changes should we make? And also, you have to think about as well, when you're going to print it, what it's going to scale to look like, right? So we work through that whole process, and then we come up with something that looks great and fantastic, and then we print a sample, and then that goes to my sample maker, and we make a sample garment. Right. And so it takes more time than that. Yeah. But in general, that's
about the framework.
Right.
How long would that be typically?
To work with the designer, not too long. I mean,
meaning like from concept to being having something in your hand, like how?
It would take about a month.
A month. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as I thought.
No. Yeah. No. So typically about a month. Maybe a week or two working with the designer, and then sending that off, and then sending it off to the manufacturer in China, and then getting it back to be in hand. Because you have to, take into account ship times in China, and all the holidays that China has as well. Because they have tons
of
more
things
holidays.
that get lost, and snowstorms.
So about a month.
About a month. Right. So from a line perspective, are you still creating it? Is it in stores now? Are you selling it online? Like, what's your distribution look like?
Yeah, so right now we're 100% online.
Okay.
But we also participate in different events. So last year we participated in about 5 different events. So typically focused on either plus size events. So we'll have different expos where plus size women will get together and have empowerment, different empowerment events and activities. And so we'll vend at those. And we also did an African focused event where, you can come together and pretty much different African fashion vendors will come together and sell. So we've done that as well. We did a natural hair event, because hair is very big in our community. So I've done that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so those kind of complementary places to be able to get the product out, knowing that you have your target audience there.
Yeah, exactly. And then also it gives us an opportunity to have women actually feel the garments.
Right.
They'll try them on. It may or may not work for them. Most of the time it does. So it also gives us an opportunity to be able to, increase our following as well, because even though someone may not buy something at that time, we still have them subscribe to our email list.
Right.
Follow us on social media, and then it gives me an opportunity to tell them more about the brand as well.
Yeah, nurture the relationship.
Exactly, and it puts kind of a human face to the brand.
Yeah, and it takes a lot longer to move people along sometimes than you think. Like they may have seen it at an event or heard about it, and until some kind of key thing pushes them over, you've got to keep talking to them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go to a commercial break, and when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about what you've learned along the way. So some lessons like, did you have any missteps, hiring a designer, getting that first product, what did that look like? And if somebody else said that they wanted to do the same thing, so they're a finance major and they've decided to create their own line, and they had you over for coffee, what would you tell them? Very curious about that. So we'll be back in just a second. We're talking to Anna Toomer. She's the founder of Maria Paulina, which is a line of clothing. And you're listening to Ace's Best Stories. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. We'll be back just after this commercial.
If it wasn't for ACE, my business may have closed in 1 year.
If it wasn't for ACE, my business wouldn't be expanded as much as it's expanding right now. They were there for me at the time of my need.
If it wasn't for ACE, we would not be here today.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for ACE, I would very much still be cooking at an hourly rate, and I would have never impacted hundreds of lives and an entire community.
I still remember going to different kind of banks, big banks, and with papers, and these people send me back because I don't have, I had experience in the restaurant business, but I don't have, everything else this bank needed, and ACE believe in me.
I did the research in Adult Day. I had experienced it personally because my grandfather had Alzheimer's, so I wanted to do the business myself. Get into it because I knew I could make a difference.
Initially, when we started, there was only one person, which would be me. And then the company I've grown from 1% to 8, and we provide quality assurance, quality control testing for FDA-regulated companies.
I think Grace not only completely understands what it's like to start off in an office connected to your laundry room or wherever she was, but she also understands the growth process, and I think that she does an excellent job of making sure that everybody who works with ACE has an understanding of the kind of struggles and celebrations that you can have.
ACE has helped us with putting our business idea into the market, working with us, with the business actually working, actually showing us, guiding me personally, how to solve some of my marketing issue problems or with the business planning.
You don't meet many lenders that are invested in your success. And, from their classes or presentations, seminars, they really do have a vested interest in your success.
The best advice I can do to small business owners is follow your dreams. Always follow your dreams, follow your heart.
Have a plan. Just because you have a passion for it doesn't mean that you can start a good business.
Get ready for the ride of your life, and definitely make sure that you look out for fantastic resources like ACE.
ACE is the way to go.
You're just the best. They really are.
And we're back. You're listening to Ace's Best Stories. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. On Ace's Best Stories, we share the stories of people kind of living their dreams, potentially doing their side hustle to make it into their main hustle, which I'm curious if that's where you're headed. So I'll ask you that in a second. So I'm talking with Anna Toomer. She's the founder of Maria Paulina. How'd you come up with the name?
So, great question. So Maria is my maternal grandmother.
Yeah.
And Paulina is my paternal grandmother.
Oh, nice.
So when I was, coming up with the brand, one of the things that inspired me are my grandmothers. Where I'm from, everyone, lives in African print clothing, right? And they served as the inspiration, right, for the prints and everything that we use, and also they represent strong, empowering women, right? And so that's also a cornerstone or a part of our mission of the brand is to empower women, and they serve as my role models in that.
Very nice. How much do you tell that story as part of the brand?
I do include it a lot in our website, and I get that question a lot. What's Maria Paulina? And so I get a chance to tell a lot of our customers and potential or prospective customers, or a lot of people that interact with us about that.
Yeah.
It's all like it's like in our About Us page, and it's one of the things that I love telling women when I meet them at different events. What inspired the brand? Because I get that question a lot from customers. Customers now I find are very curious about why did you decide to do this?
Right.
What's what's the story with the brand?
Yeah, they want to know the story.
Yeah, they want to know
why
story.
we're buying. And
right.
What,
right.
Sort of gets to what
Yeah.
and not what. Lots of people confuse meaning what of like physically. It's like, what am I buying into? Like what's
exactly. Exactly. They want to know what the mission of the brand is a lot more, because with Instagram and Facebook, you see a lot of pretty dresses, right? When I first started conceptualizing the brand, there were probably about maybe a few brands that actually offered something nice or pretty for plus size women to wear. Now it's a lot more competitive. So customers, to decide whether they want to buy into the brand, they want to know, what is the mission? What are you all about?
Yeah.
And that kind of makes it helps them, it pushes them, from a prospective customer to a fan.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me about something that was harder than you thought. Because I know you say you Googled. There's a lot, I've Googled too. And sometimes that gets you in trouble. You Google something and say, oh yeah, I could do that. And then you call the professional. So what did you maybe Google and thought was going to be easier, or something that you ran into along the way that you wish somebody told you about, or that you wish you knew more about?
I think when you're creating a fashion line, I think the main thing that I underestimated was the marketing aspect of it, right?
Okay.
You hear about marketing and branding and you kind of understand it at a high level, but being clear that when you're designing or creating any sort of company, that you have to have your customer, your end customer in mind, at a very detailed level. You can't just start with, oh, well, I want to cater to plus size women. Well, what does she do? Where does she live? Is she married? Does she have kids? Where does she shop? What is she watching? What does she read? Those types of questions I didn't ask myself at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So when I created my first collection, I created, these pretty garments, right? And, it did fairly well, but it could have done better if I'd had a clear idea of who I was designing for.
Yeah.
Where are they going with the garment? I think thinking about that is very important. I think sometimes when you're in that creative space, you just want to create and make something beautiful, make a beautiful web page or whatever you're doing. But you have to go a step beyond to actually think about functionality.
Yeah.
Like, who is the woman or man, if you're a male designer, that's going to wear this,
Yeah.
right? And then also thinking about price points as well, because that's also going to go into it, right? So thinking about that as well also helps you to talk to manufacturers. So when you're thinking about pricing and costing of your product, you already know, okay, well, my target customer, their disposable income is this amount of money. So I can't make or manufacture a product at $100,
Right.
because then I would have to charge $300. And if my customer base makes $50,000 a year, they're not spending $300 on a garment.
Right.
So having that discussion and that planning in place is something that I do a lot now, but at the beginning I didn't think of. I just thought,
So why did you think about it? Like, what made you come to the realization you need to be more clear?
I think when you start marketing, right? When you start running Facebook
things
ads,
don't work, and,
right?
yeah.
And also going back to what you talked about, what events I go to. So I would find myself at an event where I really shouldn't be at,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm like, the people that are here are great, but they're not my customer,
Yeah.
right? So it saves you from making investments in places where you shouldn't.
Yeah.
For example, my customer may not be on Snapchat. So am I going to run an ad on Snapchat? Probably not.
Right.
My customer is on Facebook mostly, right? So that the money I put into Facebook, I will see a return on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of when I started to really realize, hey, I'm seeing more of a return in A and not as much in B.
Yeah.
That's when I started to think, well, let me take a step back and really start to think of what is my customer reading. So then I know, hey, if a magazine comes to me and says, hey, do you want to spend $1,000 advertising in our magazine? I can say, hey, my customer's not reading this magazine.
Right. Well, and that's having your finance side probably helps with that.
Yeah.
Because you're a numbers person and you understand you got to put, you spend money, you should get some back, that kind of thing. So that definitely, a lot of creatives don't necessarily have that side of their thinking. And it's not about just building the product; it's about getting the product off the shelf. Like once you get it, how do you where do you store it? Do you have like a place you store it?
Yeah, I store it. So I've pretty much, the basement is now mine.
Yeah. So you just took it over.
I just took over the basement. And so a lot of our inventory is stored there. My husband helps me a lot in fulfilling orders. So we're pretty much a great team.
Yeah. So thinking about the future, how do you come up with new product lines? How often do you have to do that? Is it a new product line or is it just additional pieces? Like how does that cycle work for you?
So we do different collections. So we'll typically do 2 collections a year.
Okay.
So the way that I come up with it is typically I look at what our customers are wearing. So I do a lot of social media research and I look at what women are wearing. For the first time last year, we actually did a customer survey where we sent out to all of our email subscribers and we had a 10% response rate.
Oh, that's good.
And they responded and they said, okay, what are they wearing? What do they want to see? If they haven't made a purchase, why haven't they made a purchase? We asked them to, just give us feedback and let us know what they want to see. And so we've actually taken that feedback. And so for our new spring collection that's coming out here in a month or 2, so we'll be able to, we've incorporated that into those products. So if customers say, hey, I actually, I want to see longer dresses, I want to see, longer skirts, we took that into account and, we created and crafted a collection based on that.
Did you offer any incentive on the survey, or people just completed it?
Did not offer any incentive, just completed the survey.
Good. Having my kind of research marketing background, 3% is a good return on that kind of survey. So if you got 10%, that's a really good number.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
I did send out probably about 4 reminders.
Yeah.
So
you have to do that. Yeah, because people are like, don't remember it or they want to do it, and you can't just do it once and then be like, oh, it didn't work. Yeah. As someone else would come to you and say, hey, I'm thinking about the same thing. Like, I want to do this as my side hustle. Other than Googling, is there any other advice you'd give them on before they got started?
I think that I would tell them, and I would tell them, you have to really be passionate about it. Fashion, it looks glamorous. I don't want to dissuade anybody,
Right.
but fashion looks glamorous, but it's a very tough business.
Yeah, we've all seen Devil Wears Prada.
Yes, it's very tough. We don't have a lot of Meryl Streeps walking around. So it's a very tough business. It's very capital intensive as well, right? Yeah. You have to be comfortable with failure and criticism. You know, you may have customers tell you point blank, I would never wear that because ABC, and you have to be okay with that. Because sometimes creators, we take it personal. So I'll tell them first, make sure that you're passionate about it, and then do your research, right? You know, whether it's beyond going to Google, I read books on on apparel manufacturing. I spoke with people that are in the industry. I spoke with manufacturers. I took notes. So you have to approach it as if you're studying for an exam, pretty much. Yeah. Take notes, do your research, understand who your customer is, who you're designing for, and really be comfortable with the fact that, you know, overnight success doesn't really exist.
Right now.
So be comfortable with the fact that, hey, you know, you may fail the first time, but there's no greater gratification with seeing people wearing your garments.
Yeah. Right.
And using your garments to, you know, celebrate graduations and weddings or whatever you have it. So the biggest thing I always tell designers is do your research. Yeah. Do your research. Yeah. Always do your research.
Well, and that concept of, you know, failure, being okay with it, and having a practical thing to work on. So I have people who come to me who may be in college or want to try something out. There's a difference between applied knowledge and book knowledge.
Right.
You can read about it, but until you try to go do it, then you start to learn real lessons about what's going to work and what's not. And you know, it's sort of like if you said, I just took up piano years ago. If I sat down to the piano and could play perfectly the first time, that's not really learning how to play. Right. Same thing in business. Like it's not gonna work at first, but then you'll get better at it. It becomes second nature.
Yeah, and then something I also recently, I think probably a year ago, someone was telling me that I really think for young in school designers or someone that's looking at fashion, consider getting a job in the fashion industry. Right. Working, whether it's a retail store or for established designer, interning. That is, I mean, gosh, a lot of the stuff that I had to learn, because it took me about 2 years to develop this line, right? Yeah. Because I had to literally start from scratch. I didn't go to design school, so I had to kind of get all of the pieces on the board, on the chessboard. So already having that knowledge, you know, it's fantastic.
Well, and your important point there is there's this concept of I go to school and then I'll get a job. And you need to try to get a job at least part-time while you're in school doing that. Yeah. Because you may be like me. I told you I went to school for computer science and realized I did not want to program computers the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And so that helped me figure out how to pivot that at that time. Yeah. And I see people all the time who are like, okay, I just got my degree in whatever, but I didn't do anything. And then now maybe you hate it or you don't have the skills that someone else does. So that's a really smart thing to advise. Yeah.
In school, I would say interning in fashion. No matter what your major is, intern in fashion. If this is something you want to do, I mean, honestly, so many established designers and that are successful, they worked for other people, absolutely, right? Yeah. So, and there's a reason why, because you learn the tricks of the trade. Yeah. You learn where to get your suppliers, how to talk to manufacturers. A lot of the stuff that I have to kind of learn secondhand.
And the good news is you get to do it on their dime. You get to learn some mistakes and things on their dime. I don't do a lot of stuff that I saw other entrepreneurs when I was working with them. Wow. That they spent their money, and I'm like, well, that didn't work.
Exactly, because it's costly mistakes.
Right. So thanks so much for joining me. It's been and I wish you the grace of luck with it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so we've been listening to Ace's Best Story. Been talking with Anna Toomer. She's the founder of Maria Paulina. Have to look up online. Join us next time when we bring you another story of an entrepreneur, small business owner, or a creative bringing their own product and services to market. Thanks so much for joining us.